The protection of the state's beautiful and healthful environment is hereby declared to be of fundamental importance to the public interest, health, safety, and the general welfare. The legislature shall provide for control of pollution and control of despoilment of the air, water, and other natural resources of this state, consistent with the use and development of these resources for the maximum benefit of the people. Over the last decade, we have had an explosion in oil and gas production. So New Mexico is the country's second largest oil producer, and this country is the world's largest oil producer. And New Mexico sits on the Permian Basin, which is called by scientists the world's largest global carbon bomb.
Smell the oil now? All depends on what you're downwind from. I've lived in Carlsbad for almost 24 years. I have seen over the last 20 years the degradation of our community on a level that is almost apocalyptic. See, look out here, we've got an alfalfa field and a pecan orchard, and then just past that, we have oil operations, all in the same vicinity. And if you look at that flare over there, you'll see what we're smelling.
We're at the Sinclair refinery in Artesia, and right now I am looking at 5 separate stacks that are all producing emissions. What they're doing right now isn't legal, no, unless they report it. That's where it gets a little complicated. With the agreed compliance orders in place, they can just, report that all these stacks were emitting at what time. Then the state, sees them as incompliant. They basically circumvent the law by reporting that they're violating it.
So there's really a myth in our state that we create the so-called cleanest oil in the world. They also love to say that they're already so highly regulated that there's no need for further regulation. Every fracking site in our state is granted with no consideration for the environment or public health. The Oil Conservation Division has a handful of regulators to monitor over 70,000 fracking sites, but they have about 5 investigators. The Environment Department is responsible to make sure that the air isn't polluted. Again, they have under 10 enforcement officers, and so even the Secretary of the Environment Department has said, it's impossible for them to investigate and monitor the amount of production that's going on in our state. It would take them decades to get to every site.
Yeah, that's a really big one.
We recently passed a regulation in our state that prohibits venting and flaring, but the regulation is full of exceptions. And if you drive through the Permian Basin, I guarantee you will see the flares.
This is open range, so you have cattle grazing all over the place. But most of these sites out here are abandoned, so they're just sitting there, but they still have product in the tank, so they're still emitting. And so it's really easy here. You could just pick a site and 90% chance, I would say, that I could find emissions. The operator out here that's a problem is a small operator called Poco Resources. And what they're looking at right now is just a bunch of caked crude at the bottom of that tank. So this is considered an active well. It's listed as active. This is normal.
With this production has come an explosion of oil and gas pollution, and yet the state hasn't kept up. The state hasn't protected our environment or our health. We also have a regulation that says spills of toxic liquid waste are prohibited, but we have 4 spills a day.
Yeah, there's an active oil spill. So this is mostly water, but there is oil as well. But it used to be just a big pool of crude. This is also Poco.
We have almost no operators ever being penalized for those spills.
The site that we're currently at, this is owned by Taprock Operating. The site name is Pliny the Elder 232H. The flare at this site, I have filed 7 complaints on in the last couple of years, and New Mexico regulatory agencies haven't responded at all. You know, me and one other person doing field work, we would hit like 30 or 40 of these in a day. Yeah, I can easily hit 200 sites a week that look just like this. So.
And the science is very clear that being near and in proximity to oil and gas pollution is very dangerous for your health.
When the EPA sets these minimal levels of toxins, it's like, it's a frickin' toxin. There is no safe level. Even people who have health care, even docs like me, who know this stuff, we don't have access to testing levels. We don't have access in most places to air quality monitoring, to water quality monitoring. We don't even know what we're exposed to. Oh, remember to ask them what their exposures are. I mean, I learned that in medical school, right? But the exposures were not toxin, carcinogens and endocrine disruptors in your air and water and food.
All the way to that fence, far back there is my family's land. Essentially what you're looking at is an active construction site where they're adding natural gas pipelines underground. We're looking at numbers 7 and 8 being added to the ground. There are already 6 pipelines here. I can't properly identify the words to explain what it feels like to watch people come into your home and take over. There's a feeling of helplessness. There's a feeling of helplessness knowing that my 78-year-old grandmother has to watch this from her window, watching her home being ripped up.
So one of the things about Counselor New Mexico, or what is called Eastern Agency of the Navajo Nation, is we have what is called the checkerboard area. Now we are surrounded by BLM land, federal land, fee land.
So it makes for a complex jurisdiction. It is an existence of no man's land. We had a tsunami of oil and gas development. No place to run, no place to take shelter. It's here. See, here's a temporary water facility here. Sam calls them outdoor swimming pools.
The state doesn't know and the industry doesn't know what to do with all of this toxic liquid waste. They've renamed it produced water.
The industry doesn't have to divulge the exact chemicals that are put into that mixture. These are close relatives, they're allotment, and right now they're landlocked. No water, no electricity. Whereas that well site we just passed has electricity. An oil company can go to a tract of land and say, I want to lease that. And they have their own system that a person here never gets apprised of. And to hell with the people that live out there. To hell with the beauty of the land, the unfettered landscape.
See, come look in. It's really yak. So it's just a toxic stew. We're here on this well site with our house and our home in the background and our spring, the famous Devil's Spring right below us. Morning, girls. Feels very much like you're on a normal ranch, and then you come around the corner and any corner, and this is what we have. Shoot, it's dumping waste, and you can smell it now. So these are our neighbors. I know you've had a bad neighbor or two. Think about if your neighbor could just come onto your property and drill an oil or a gas well, and you could not stop them. And that's the law in the United States. Even though we own this land, we can't stop the oil company from drilling here. Could have been leaking for weeks and weeks, I don't know, but it was just pouring out methane and, as you can see from the sign, benzene, very toxic, cancer-causing, and harmful. Every single well vents emissions on purpose. It's built that way. You can't build a house and not have a leak in the plumbing. Now think of 30,000 wells, and this is the plumbing. They're good guys out in the field. Guys working here every day, just jobs that they need. Provide for their families, they're local, and they're helpful. All the problems that we ever have with an oil company come from somebody in an office that has got a glass window in it. Got a dove right up here. Oh, and a hawk right here. Beautiful. Pinon jays, also known as rain crows. They could be a sign that we're going to get some rain.
The wells here are pretty far apart, not like the Permian. Very remote, not a lot of power for folks. They got to haul their water in. So this is what is commonly called a Poppin' Johnny. So it's a gas engine that is being powered by the gas coming off the well, and that's what you're hearing right now. And it runs 24/7, 365 days a year. This is not actually a well, it's a facility. On this location, there was an old fire extinguisher, and fire extinguishers need to be inspected monthly and every year. And so there was a metal tag on it that was stamped 2009. But you can look around and see corrosive acids. See, look at the conditions of these things. Look at the sludge in the bottom of this. Look at the little samples here, sample bottles. There was an email I saw which basically said there was like a discussion between the BLM and New Mexico OCD, sort of arguing or discussing about who was going to pay for the cleanup of this. That's always sort of been the issue up here. Who's responsible? Is it the BIA? Is it the BLM? Is it the New Mexico Oil Conservation Division? Or is it, the surface owners or whoever? So they're always going back and forth and just sort of kicking the can down the road. Really nasty stuff.
The reality is we don't know how many abandoned wells there are, but we can be very confident that if the state says there are 1,700, it's probably 10 times or much higher. We know it's a much higher number. We know the oil industry doesn't want us to know what the true number is because they owe us the money to clean that up. Their business model is to privatize the profits and then socialize the losses. Stick the cleanup bill to the New Mexican taxpayers. This is their take the money and run approach. And it's the same thing they're doing in Texas and North Dakota and anywhere we produce oil and gas.
So my children, they go to Liebrook Elementary in Counselor, New Mexico. My kids have always told me that there's a smell in the classroom and outside the classrooms. When he smells it for a long period of time, that's when he gets headaches. Now my sons, they get like skin rashes. And I ask my kids, like, are there kids coughing at school? And they go, yeah, everyone's always coughing.
I suffer from an autoimmune disease. Just recently, I got done with a 3-week migraine episode where I was in and out of pain every day for those 3 weeks.
High incidence of congestion, headache, VOCs, methane does affect the endocrine system. And with the already high existence of diabetes, COPD, high blood pressure, that just exacerbates health impacts.
And we are essentially a colony of the industry. And with all of this money, we are paying a heavy price. We are paying with our health, and we are literally paying with our futures, because it is the oil and gas industry that is driving the climate crisis and destroying our environment. And for those of us who live near oil and gas production, it is destroying our health. And it's really a question, is it worth it?
I had heard back then about the original uranium mines. And then after that, it's the Trinity test site and all the downwinders, and that's still happening and they're still being ignored, right? We are a sacrifice zone. Oil and gas is just the newest sacrifice.
People that live in the corners of this state are living with a beast. For me, this is every single day, day in and day out, and we don't get a break from this. We don't get rest from this.
So we have both the blessing of a natural resource and the curse for what it brings.
Nothing can really live here. There's just nothing but habitat fragmentation and the destruction of a once thriving ecosystem. This is a big, farming community. The food that we're eating is bioaccumulating all these toxins that are produced by the oil and gas industry. The food that we grow, that people consume, accumulating all these toxins, in turn we're doing the same thing because we're consuming them.
We have been pushing the state, pushing the governor, pushing the legislature to pass a law that would prevent new production near schools, and it would protect the health of 34,000 children. We can't get this law passed. And I think the reason we can't get this law passed is because our policymakers, our governor, they don't want to admit that oil and gas production and pollution is harmful to our health. If they were to admit that, that would be a crack in the door, that in fact our oil and gas isn't clean, and that oil and gas production isn't clean, and that we need protection from this filthy industry.
It's the best kept secret of industry. It's the tobacco industry on steroids.
So that's the corporation, and that's what we're dealing with, and that's why the governors, the legislatures, and the only thing that can really help is probably the court system.
I'm working with a coalition called NMLAWS, which stands for New Mexico Land, Air, Water, and the Sacred. And we are a coalition of Indigenous youth and frontline community members who have come together to hold the state accountable for its duty, its constitutional duty, to protect our beautiful environment from oil and gas pollution.
Right now we're at Sitting Bull Falls. If you can believe it, we're still in the Permian Basin, only an hour from Carlsbad. I love to come here and listen to the flowing water. When I come here, I know what I'm fighting so hard for.
For the Navajos, early on, we were told, use only what you need. Take care of the earth. The earth will take care of you. They view land much like a commodity. An acre of land has so much value, but in the Navajo concept, acres isn't part of the language, the culture. It's the vastness of the landscape.
Living with oil and gas as a landowner is very, very difficult. We must all live under the same blue sky and work towards protecting that and protecting the future for our children and doing what makes common sense.
I'll use my bottom line. Our health has been politicized. Our lives have been politicized. There is no political will to rein in industry profits. A corporation is a person, they have rights. Well, they have used their rights to abuse the planet and the people.
This is not a question of is it a Democratic administration or a Republican administration? This is a constitutional question. Basically, what we need to see the state do is protect our health and protect our environment and protect our climate. And the state has a lot of work to do to protect, as our Constitution says, our beautiful and healthful environment.
It is so vital to me that we find the healthy balance between creating energy without destroying the planet in the process. What happens here is not just affecting Carlsbad. What happens here, what happens in the Permian Basin, is affecting the planet.
We're up against a neighbor that is the most destructive industry in the history of the world. And that's a tough neighbor to have. We just have to fight every day and ask everyone to join us in that fight.
We have to tell our story over and over. If it can happen here, it can happen anywhere.